My name is Caleb Thorne. They all say I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, a golden boy destined for greatness. What they don't know is that I'm not from this world. I was reincarnated into this Frankenstein's monster of a universe, stitched together from a half-dozen trashy action novels. And my role? I'm the cliché villainous rich kid, the one who exists solely to be a punching bag for the original hero, handing over my money and my dignity. According to the original script, today is the day he returns. Damien Stryker, the legendary mercenary known as the apex of the Dragon's Den. He's supposed to hear that I've been harassing his fiancée, Isabella Vance. In a fit of righteous fury, he'll have his hundreds of private soldiers lock down the airport, and then, in front of God and everyone, he'll grind my face into the pavement. It's the first step in his glorious, face-slapping return to power. And I, Caleb Thorne, heir to the Thorne billions, am meant to be his first stepping stone on his path to glory, a path that ends with my family ruined and my life forfeit. To hell with the script. I look in the mirror, adjusting the collar on my tactical SWAT uniform. A cold smirk touches my lips. Villain? Stepping stone. Sorry, not this time. In this life, I flipped the script. I joined the academy and worked my way up to become the commander of the Port Sterling PD SWAT unit. You want to act like a big shot on my turf? First, you'll have to get through my sidearm and the full weight of the U.S. government backing me up. Ping. A crisp, synthetic voice echoed in my mind. Host has assumed official uniform. Righteous aura plus 10. The enforcer system is at your service. That's right. My golden ticket. My cheat code. All I have to do is legally arrest these wannabe protagonists who walk around with a main character halo, and I get rewarded. Mercenary kings, master assassins, miracle doctors, super soldiers. To me, you're all just a stack of high-value arrest warrants waiting to be served. Commander Thorne, we've got a mass gathering at Terminal A, Gate 3. It's completely paralyzed traffic in and out of the airport. My team member's urgent voice crackled over the radio. Showtime. I snapped on my tactical helmet, my eyes turning to steel. All units, listen up. Our target is a group calling themselves the Dragon's Den. They're suspected of unlawful assembly and severely disrupting public order. All teams, prepare to engage. Consequences? Let's see what kind of consequences this so-called apex faces when he's staring down the barrel of a rifle with a pair of cold steel handcuffs locked around his wrists. Port Sterling International Airport was a sea of chaos, a cacophony of noise frozen in place. Thousands of burly men in identical black suits stood like a human wall, their faces grim, completely blockading Gate 3. They had unfurled a massive banner, the words "Welcome Home," Apex scrawled across it in bold, arrogant letters. Travelers were trapped inside. Outside, cars were backed up for miles, a symphony of blaring horns, shouted curses, and crying children. What the hell is this? The mob? Where's airport security? My wife's in labor. I have to get through. This is insane. Is this even legal? In the middle of the agitated crowd, one woman stood out. Isabella Vance, breathtakingly beautiful in a custom white dress, her face beaming with pride and happiness. She was Damien Stryker's fiancée. To her, this scene of public disruption and chaos wasn't a crime. It was the grandest romantic gesture she could imagine. Just then, the piercing wail of sirens ripped through the air. A dozen armored SWAT vehicles, Lenko Bearcats, barreled through the outer perimeter of suited men, scattering them like bowling pins before coming to a hard stop in the center of the plaza. Doors flew open. Teams of heavily armed officers in full tactical gear, carrying riot shields and M4 carbines, poured out, seamlessly forming a standard assault formation. The cold, black muzzles of their rifles and their disciplined presence instantly extinguished the so-called aura of the 1,000-man welcoming committee. I leaped out of the lead vehicle, the word police emblazoned on my ballistic vest glinting in the sun. Predator Tracker online. The system chimed in my head. Scanning primary target. Damien Stryker, the apex, criminal record. Illegal entry into the United States, 5 years prior. 37 counts of illegal possession and discharge of firearms in foreign territories, aggravated assault, resulting in 12 serious injuries and 3 permanent disabilities. I scanned the laundry list of charges and grinned. This guy wasn't some legendary hero. He was a walking, talking promotion with a bonus attached. Everyone listen up. I bellowed through a bullhorn, my voice thundering across the plaza. This is the Port Sterling Police Department. Your actions are in violation of penal code sections covering unlawful assembly and the disturbance of public order. Disperse immediately, or we will be forced to take action. A murmur went through the crowd of black suits, but they didn't back down. Instead, their heads all snapped in unison toward the exit gate. A man in a black trench coat, his eyes radiating an arrogant chill, was walking out. That was him, Damien Stryker. The moment he saw me, his eyes filled with contempt and disdain, like he was looking at an ant. He must have already gotten the rundown from Isabella. I was the villainous rich boy who wouldn't leave his fiancée alone. Caleb Thorne. His voice was low but carried an odd weight. I'll give you 3 seconds. Get your pigs out of my sight. Huh, idiot. Does he really think this is a movie? A thrill shot through me, my blood starting to sing. I ignored him, speaking directly into my radio. Warning has failed. Primary suspect is hostile and demonstrating a clear intent to resist arrest. Teams 1 and 2, clear the area. Deploy tear gas and water cannons to disperse the outer crowd. Teams 3 and 4 with me. We're apprehending the primary suspect. Yes, sir. With a unified roar, the SWAT teams moved like a tidal wave. Thump, thump. Several canisters of tear gas arced into the crowd, and thick, acrid smoke billowed out. High-pressure water cannons unleashed powerful jets, knocking the defiant, suited men off their feet. The scene descended into utter pandemonium. Through it all, I led 2 elite squads straight for Damien Stryker. You dare. Stryker's eyes went wide, and a terrifying pressure exploded from him, seeming to make the very air grow heavy. His top enforcers immediately stepped in front of him. Insolent fool, how dare you disrespect the apex? You're asking to die. One of them, a mountain of a man nicknamed Rhino, swung a fist the size of cinder blocks straight at my face. A normal person would have had their skull caved in. Perfect. Let's test out a new skill. My eyes narrowed. I didn't retreat. I stepped forward. System skill, absolute counter, activated. To the astonishment of everyone watching, I simply raised my left hand. Thwack, a dull, meaty thud. Rhino's punch, a blow that could likely dent steel, was caught effortlessly in my palm. It didn't move me an inch. What? Rhino's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He felt like he had just punched a mountain. With a flick of my wrist, I twisted. Crack. The sound of splintering bone was sickening. AR. Rhino screamed like a stuck pig, his entire arm bent back at an impossible angle. I kicked him away, sending him tumbling into a group of his men. Assaulting a police officer. That's another felony charge. I bit out the words, and the officers behind me raised their rifles. Police, don't move. Drop your weapons. Get on the ground. Hands on your head. Dozens of rifle barrels were now aimed at Stryker's remaining lieutenants. No matter how tough you are, you're just a joke in the face of the government's armed branch. Their faces went pale. Seeing their friend's mangled arm and staring down our hardware, their bravado evaporated. Damien Stryker's face was so dark it looked like it was about to storm. He never imagined that a common cop from the mortal world would actually dare to make a move, let alone have this kind of skill. Very good, he hissed through his teeth. You successfully angered me. You will pay for today's actions with your blood. He slowly pulled a black medallion from his coat. I am the apex of the dragon's den. With this token, I can summon 10,000 of my soldiers. Caleb Thorne, if you get on your knees and beg for forgiveness now, I might just let you live. Many of the scattered tourists and his own men saw the medallion. Oh my God, the dragon medallion. He really is the apex. That cop is so dead. He dared to provoke the apex. Isabella's face was flushed with excitement, staring at Damien's back. Her eyes shone with pure adoration. A brain is a terrible thing to waste. Too bad none of you have one. I looked at his so-called dragon medallion, like he was the world's biggest idiot. I simply unhooked a pair of shiny silver handcuffs from my belt. Damien Stryker, you are under suspicion of organizing and leading a criminal enterprise, as well as forgery and impersonation of a public official. Click! Before he could even react, I lunged forward, twisted his arms behind his back, and slapped the cuffs on. The movement was fluid, impossibly fast. Just like that, Damian Stryker, the untouchable apex of the Dragon's Den, was in custody right in front of 1,000 of his own men. He was completely stunned. He had dominated battlefields and looked down on the world. Why had he ever suffered such a humiliation? You dare to cuff me? He roared, his muscles trembling as he tried to break free. Stay down. I brought my knee up hard into the small of his back, slamming him face first onto the cold, hard pavement. Under Title 18 of the U.S. Code, publicly insulting or assaulting a federal officer during the execution of their duties is a felony. Resisting arrest, another felony. I announced, my voice cold and clear. From this moment on, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The entire airport fell silent. Damian, a heartbreaking shriek shattered the stillness. Isabella Vance, her face a mask of horror, hiked up her dress and ran toward us, her perfect makeup ruined by tears. Caleb Thorne, you bastard. Let him go. She got right in my face and raised her hand to slap me. I didn't even flinch. A female officer at my side grabbed her wrist in a grip of steel. Ma'am, please remain calm. Do not interfere with a police investigation. Isabella struggled, but couldn't break free. She could only glare at me with tear-filled eyes, her gaze dripping with venom and contempt. You're just jealous. You're jealous that Damian is better than you, and you're jealous that I chose him instead of you. You're abusing your power for a personal grudge. You're a petty, despicable man. Her voice was loud, filled with the victim's righteous indignation, and it worked. The onlookers started whispering. Oh, so they're rivals. That explains why he's being so rough. That cop seems pretty petty, going this far over a woman. The court of public opinion was starting to turn. Classic damsel in distress logic from a B-list novel. I sneered internally, but my face remained a mask of professional seriousness. I let go of Damian and stood up straight, looking down at Isabella. Ms. Vance, first, I don't know you. Please don't speak to me with such misplaced familiarity. I, Caleb Thorne, would certainly not risk my career over a woman. Second, I am performing my duty. Damian Stryker is a suspect in multiple felony investigations, for which we have concrete evidence. Arresting him is my job. Third, and most importantly, I paused, my voice rising, my eyes sweeping over every single person in the crowd. Before the law, everyone is equal. No one is above the law. I don't care if he's the apex, a king, or the God Emperor of mankind. His so-called grand gesture locked down this airport, disrupting the travel of tens of thousands of people, causing millions in economic damages, and could have very well delayed first responders from reaching an emergency. You call that romantic? His so-called soldiers are a mob engaged in unlawful assembly and resisting arrest. You call that power? Ms. Vance, your ignorance and your blatant disregard for the law are shocking. I suggest you go home and read up on the Constitution and the basics of criminal justice. It might do you some good. My words were like hammer blows, each one landing with indisputable force. The crowd of onlookers blinked as if waking from a dream. He's right. Who cares if he's the apex? If he broke the law, he should be arrested. Wow, I almost fell for it. For a second, I thought the cops were the bad guys. That woman is nuts. Seriously, thinking that shutting down an airport is romantic? Her values are completely messed up. That officer was awesome. So cool. Isabella was speechless, her face shifting between shades of red and white in utter humiliation. Her grand romance, when held up to the simple, cold logic of the law, had been utterly dismantled. She looked around and saw that the people who had been looking at her with envy moments ago were now staring at her like she was an idiot. This social execution was worse than any physical slap. Take them away. I had no more time to waste on her. With a wave of my hand, 2 officers hauled the still-dazed Damian Stryker to his feet and marched him towards SWAT van. Caleb Thorne, you'll regret this. The Dragon's Den will not let you go. Damian was still shouting like a madman. I paid him no mind, turning to his disarmed lieutenants. And you lot, not a single one of you is going anywhere. Take them all downtown. Let's have a nice, long chat. Port Sterling Police Department, interrogation room. Under the harsh glare of a fluorescent light, Damian Stryker sat shackled to a chair, his once arrogant face a twisted mask of humiliation and rage. Thorne, I'm giving you one last chance. He stared directly into the one-way mirror, knowing I was on the other side. Let me go. Get on your knees and apologize. If you don't, I guarantee that within 3 hours, that uniform, your badge, and your entire family will be wiped from the face of this city. Still posturing, even in here. Guess he hasn't been hit hard enough. I sat in the observation room, taking a sip of hot coffee. Beside me, a veteran detective, Captain Miller, looked worried. Commander, this guy's background. I had a friend run a check. It's not good. He's tied to a massive international PMC called the Dragon's Den. I just smiled. Don't worry, Miller. No matter how big his background is it bigger than the Great Seal of the United States? I set down my coffee and keyed the intercom. Damian Stryker, stop dreaming. This is the part where you confess and hope for leniency. Name, age, citizenship. Stryker let out a cold laugh. You are not worthy of knowing. All right, have it your way. I nodded to a tech at the console next to me. Take the airport security footage, the passenger interviews, and our body cam videos. Edit it all into a Know Your Rights PSA and post it to the department's official Twitter and YouTube channels. The title should be, shocking, man claiming to be Apex shuts down international airport, gets swiftly arrested by Port Sterling's finest. A lesson in civics. Yes, Commander. A moment later, the large monitor in the interrogation room flickered to life, playing the highlight reel. When Damian Stryker saw himself being slammed face down onto the pavement, saw Isabella being verbally eviscerated by me, and saw the crowd's expression shift from awe to pity, his face finally changed. This was worse than death. Thorne, you dare. What won't I dare? My calm voice filled the room. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. The video got over 1 million views in the first 30 minutes. It's been retweeted by every major news network. You're a viral sensation. Congratulations, Apex. Stryker's chest heaved. He looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. Still not talking? Fine. Don't blame me for what comes next. I spoke softly into the microphone. System skill, Veritas induction, activate. An invisible wave washed over the interrogation room. I leaned forward. Damian Stryker, 5 years ago, how did you enter the United States? Stryker's eyes glazed over, his jaw going slack. I was smuggled across the border, through an unpatrolled sector. What kind of organization is your Dragon's Den? It's a transnational criminal enterprise, specializing in arms trafficking, mercenary contracts, assassinations. Besides marrying Isabella Vance, what was your other objective for returning to the country? To consolidate the city's underworld and establish a foothold for the Dragon's Dens. Expansion into the North American market. One bombshell after another fell from his lips, completely against his will. In the observation room, Captain Miller and the other officers drew a collective, sharp breath. Their faces became deadly serious. They knew they had just landed a very, very big fish. In the interrogation room, after spilling his guts, Stryker suddenly snapped out of it. He remembered what he had just said, and all the color drained from his face, replaced by a look of pure, primal terror. No, I didn't say that. That wasn't me. He started struggling violently, completely unhinged. In the face of a power he couldn't comprehend, his iron will had completely shattered. The news of Stryker's confession sent shockwaves through the department's top brass. This wasn't just a public disturbance case anymore. It was a major international criminal conspiracy. An emergency task force, Operation Downfall, was formed, and I was appointed as its field commander. Just as the task force was being assembled, the police commissioner's private line rang. It was Julian Croft, the wealthiest man in Port Sterling. Croft was a key domestic partner for the Dragon's Den and Stryker's primary contact. Commissioner, Julian Croft here. The voice on the other end was slick with an unshakable arrogance. I hear some of my people had a little misunderstanding with yours at the airport. Something about a hot-headed kid named Caleb Thorne arresting them. The commissioner adjusted his glasses, glanced at me sitting across from his desk, giving my report, and spoke in a steady voice. Mr. Croft, it wasn't a misunderstanding. Damian Stryker is being investigated for multiple felonies. Croft chuckled. Commissioner, Let's not be so serious. Young people get carried away sometimes. Tell you what, my corporation will donate a new wing to the police department. You release my man, and we'll pretend this never happened. How does that sound? An entire building for one man. An impressive offer. Under normal circumstances, the commissioner might have had to weigh his options carefully. But this was different. Mr. Croft, the commissioner's voice turned to ice. Are you attempting to bribe a public official? I should remind you that this call is being recorded. There was a stunned silence from the other end. Croft never expected the commissioner to be so blunt. What's the meaning of this? You're going to define me, Julian Croft, for some rookie cop? Have you forgotten who pays half the taxes in this city? Paying taxes is a citizen's duty, not a shield for criminal activity, the commissioner shot back. I strongly advise you to stay out of this investigation. Otherwise, the officers of my task force might just be paying your office a visit for a little chat. With that, the commissioner slammed the phone down. He looked at me, his eyes filled with approval. Thorne, well done. Don't worry about a thing. See this through to the end. I don't care who it leads to. You bring them down. Sir, I won't let you down. I gave a sharp salute and walked out of his office. Enforcer system alert. Host has resisted corruption and upheld the rule of law. Awarding 1,000 justice points. New skill unlocked. Apex Predator Tracker. Apex Predator Tracker. Using a clue from a suspect, you can perfectly track their next location or key associate. Perfect timing. I was just wondering how to dig up the rest of the Dragon's Den's local network. As I stepped out of the headquarters, my cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. A cold voice came through the line. Commander Thorne? My boss would like to invite you for a drink at the Pantheon Club to discuss Mr. Stryker. The Pantheon Club, the most exclusive, high-end establishment in the city, and Julian Croft's personal property. This was an invitation to a trap. Sure, I said, a grin spreading across my face. Text me the address. I'm on my way. I hung up and immediately spoke to the team members with me. Alert the task force. We're going live. Target, the Pantheon Club. You want to talk? Great. We can talk all you want. In an interrogation room. The Pantheon Club, Emperor's Suite. Beneath a massive crystal chandelier, Julian Croft sat on a leather sofa, swirling a glass of obscenely expensive wine, a confident smile on his face. Beside him sat an old man in a silk tunic, exuding an aura of profound wisdom. The old man's eyes were closed, his breathing slow and deep. This was the renowned miracle worker, Dr. Alastair Finch. It was said his silver needles could bring the dead back to life. Dr. Finch, I truly appreciate you coming, Croft said respectfully. This Damien Stryker is the nephew of a very important client. We can't let anything happen to him. Dr. Finch slowly opened his eyes, a sharp glint within them. Rest assured, Mr. Croft, when that boy Thorne arrives, I need only one needle. I guarantee he will release your man and forget any of this ever happened. Ha ha ha. With you here, Doctor, I have nothing to worry about. Just then, the suite doors were pushed open. I walked in alone, dressed in street clothes. Commander Thorne, such courage. I didn't think you'd actually come alone, Croft said, standing up with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I glanced around the room, my gaze lingering on Dr. Finch for a second. Predator tracker scanning. Target, Alastair Finch, the miracle worker. Criminal record, practicing medicine without a license. 30 years. Aggravated assault and manslaughter. 7 deaths and 19 severe disabilities resulting from his treatments. Illegal possession and distribution of controlled substances. Creation of so-called miracle drugs using opium derivatives. Another jackpot. I pulled out a chair, sat down, and kicked my feet up on the table. Cut the crap, Croft. What do you want? Croft's face darkened, angered by my attitude. Thorne, don't push your luck. I'm giving you one last chance. Release Damien Stryker immediately, and I can forget this ever happened. And if I don't, I asked with a lazy smile. If you don't, Croft sneered, then we'll have to be less hospitable. The words had barely left his mouth when Dr. Finch blurred, appearing before me like a phantom. He held a gleaming silver needle between his fingers, and with the speed of a striking snake, he lunged for the pressure point between my eyes. Boy, consider it an honor to die by my soul-lock needle, playing with needles in front of me? You gotta be kidding. I didn't even move from my chair. System skill. Absolute counter. In the shocked and horrified eyes of Croft and Finch, the needle that was about to pierce my skull was caught effortlessly between my index and middle fingers. The tip was less than a millimeter from my skin. What? Dr. Finch's eyes looked like they were about to fall out of his head. His soul-lock needle had never, ever missed. Practicing illegal medicine, and now attempted murder. The fingers holding the needle squeezed. Snap! The specially forged tungsten steel needle broke in two. I flicked my wrist, and the broken half became a streak of silver light, embedding itself deep in Dr. Finch's shoulder. Ack! He cried out, his entire right arm going numb and useless. You? Who in God's name are you? He stared at me in terror. I didn't answer. I stood up and kicked him to the ground. At that exact moment, boom! The sweet solid oak doors were kicked off their hinges from the outside. Police! Don't move. Fully armed SWAT officers flooded the room, their rifles aimed at everyone inside. Julian Croft stared at the scene, the wine glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the floor. All the color drained from his face. Thorne, Caleb Thorne, you set me up, he stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me. He never dreamed I would dare to raid his inner sanctum. I walked over to him, took a pair of cuffs from one of my officers, and personally fastened them around his wrists. Julian Croft, you're under arrest for attempted bribery of a public official, leading a criminal enterprise, conspiracy to commit assault, and kidnapping. And you, Dr. Miracle. I looked down at the whimpering Finch on the floor, practicing without a license and attempted murder of a police officer. You're coming with us, too. Click, click. 2 pairs of handcuffs locked away 2 of the most powerful men in Port Sterling. Croft, Finch, and their dozens of bodyguards were led out like lambs to the slaughter. The other patrons and staff of the Pantheon Club were frozen in shock. When had they ever seen the city's richest man and the legendary doctor look so pathetic? Oh my God, is that Julian Croft being arrested? And the old man is Dr. Finch. What happened? Who are these cops? They're terrifying. I ignored the whispers, took out my phone, and called the commissioner. Sir, the Pantheon Club has been neutralized. Primary suspects Julian Croft and Alastair Finch are in custody. Excellent. Beautiful work, the commissioner boomed over the phone. Thorne, you've done it again. Ping. Successfully apprehended B-rank target of interest Alastair Finch and dismantled a B-rank criminal den. Awarding 5,000 justice points. New tech unlocked. Portable evidence analyzer. Portable evidence analyzer. Rapidly analyzes electronic devices, documents, and other items for criminal evidence, generating a complete evidence chain. Another fantastic tool. I immediately gave the order. Lock this place down. Seize every server, every ledger, every security camera. I want it all. With this new analyzer, not a single one of Julian Croft's dirty deeds would remain hidden. 2 hours later, the task force office was a hive of activity. My techs were using the new analyzer, tearing through the mountains of data we'd seized from the club. Commander, we've got a major hit, a tech shouted. On the screen was a heavily encrypted email, just cracked by the analyzer. The sender was the Dragon's Den's overseas headquarters. The recipient was Julian Croft. The message was a simple set of orders. Objective, Port Sterling Police Department. Mission, extract the Apex. Eliminate obstruction, Caleb Thorne. Asset assigned. Spectre. Mission class. Alpha. Attached was a personnel file. Codename. Spectre. Silas Vance. Affiliation. Top-tier international mercenary. The Dragon's Den's premier assassin. AKA the King of Mercenaries. Record. Responsible for the successful solo assassination of a foreign head of state. Escaped from encirclement by a 1,000-man army. Specialties. All forms of firearms, demolitions, close-quarters combat. Captain Miller sucked in a sharp breath. The King of Mercenaries? They're sending a monster like that. Commander, this is bad. The man's a killing machine. I stared at the cold, hard face in the photo, but my eyes were shining with excitement. Bad? No, this is a gift. I was just trying to figure out how to uproot the Dragon's Den, and they decided to deliver their kingpin right to my doorstep. When's he scheduled to move? I asked. The tech pointed to the bottom of the email. The timetable is tonight at midnight. I glanced at the clock on the wall. The hands pointed to 11. 1 hour to go. Right on time. A predator's smile stretched across my face. Give me a direct line to every unit in the city. All leave is canceled. Full tactical alert. We're going to turn police headquarters into the most elaborate trap this city has ever seen. Tonight, gentlemen, we're going to hunt a king. The night was black as ink. Outside the Port Sterling Police Department, the streets were silent, bathed in the lonely glow of a few streetlights. Inside, however, the building was a coiled viper waiting to strike. I had mobilized every elite SWAT officer in the city. Snipers, assault teams, a bomb squad. Every corner of the building was an ambush point. I sat in the command center, a wall of monitors showing me over 100 different camera feeds, giving me a god's eye view of everything inside and out. Time ticked by .11:59 p.m. Commander, no sign of him, a tense officer reported. You think he called it off? He'll be here, I said with absolute certainty. Men like him are pathologically arrogant. He won't deviate from a plan. As if on cue, a black speck zipped across the edge of a monitor. Southwest corner. Roof of Building 3. I barked. The camera zoomed in. A man in black tactical gear was scaling the wall like a spider, moving with impossible speed and silence. He was loaded for war. Combat knife, pistols, micro-explosives. It was him, the king of mercenaries, Silas Spectre Vance. All units, listen up. The fish is in the net. Do not fire until I give the order. I stared intently at the screen. Spectre's skill was undeniable. He avoided every standard security camera, moving through our perimeter like a ghost. Soon, he slipped through a window into the main office building. He didn't take the stairs, instead crawling through the ventilation system, making a direct line for the special detention cell where we were holding Stryker. Apex Predator Tracker is active. I see his every move mapped out in my mind. Assault 1, seal the ventilation shaft behind him. Assault 2, prepare to breach the detention cell door on my mark. Snipers, lock down all potential escape routes. The orders flowed from me, calm and precise. Spectre, completely unaware, arrived at the vent above the detention cell. He used a miniature plasma cutter to silently slice through the grate and drop down as lightly as a cat. But the cell was empty. Damian Stryker was nowhere to be seen. Damn it. A trap. Spectre's face contorted in fury. He spun around to retreat, but it was too late. Boom! The detention cell's reinforced steel door was blown clean off its hinges. Dozens of SWAT officers with riot shields and rifles flooded in. Police, don't move. At the same instant, alarms blared throughout the entire building, and every light flashed on, turning night into day. Spectre was momentarily stunned, but his instincts were razor-sharp. He drew 2 pistols from his hips and unleashed a hail of gunfire toward the door. Bang, 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 bang. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off the riot shields. The sheer volume of fire pinned my men down. Commander, suspect's firepower is too heavy. We can't advance. Use the flashbang. I ordered calmly. A canister was tossed into the room. WHOM. The blinding light and deafening roar left Spectre momentarily blind and deaf. That was the opening. I sprinted from the command center, carrying a newly requisitioned piece of experimental tech, an EMP rifle. By the time I reached the cell door, Spectre was already recovering, reaching for a fresh magazine. He saw me, and a vicious, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He dropped his empty pistols, drew a combat knife from his back, and charged at me with a roar. D-Cup. Facing the world's deadliest mercenary, I didn't even blink. Just as he reached me, the knife poised to rip out my throat, I raised the EMP rifle. There was no loud bang, just a soft hum. A wave of invisible energy slammed into Spectre. His charging body froze mid-stride, his face locked in a mask of rage. A second later, he began to convulse, foam frothing at his lips before collapsing in a heap. The electronics all over his body sparked and died. The EMP rifle was designed for exactly this kind of high-tech dependent criminal. The fight was over before it had truly begun. My officers rushed in, cuffing the unconscious Spectre securely. Commander, you're a monster. That was incredible. A one-shot takedown. The awe and respect in my team's eyes was palpable. I lowered the rifle, my expression calm. Clean up this mess. Get him to the medics. Make sure he doesn't die. I have questions for him. Yes, sir. Ping. Successfully apprehended A-rank target of Silas Vance and thwarted an A-rank terrorist attack. Awarding 10,000 justice points. New skill unlocked. Aura of authority. During law enforcement actions, your presence will exert mental pressure on all criminals, reducing their combat effectiveness by 50%. Now that's a useful skill. This job just got a little easier. The next day, interrogation room. Spectre woke up. He looked at the restraint jacket he was wearing and then at me, sitting across from him, his eyes filled with disbelief. He couldn't understand how he had been so utterly defeated. Who are you? He asked, his voice a dry rasp. Commander Caleb Thorne, Port Sterling PD. I tossed a file onto the table in front of him. That's an internal roster of the Dragon's Den's members and a map of their global strongholds. We found it on you. Thanks for the gift. Spectre's pupils contracted. That data was his mission's most valuable secret. Now, I'm going to offer you a deal, I said, leaning forward. Become a state's witness. Testify against the Dragon's Den. I can make a recommendation to the judge for a reduced sentence. Spectre was silent. For a mercenary, betraying your employer was the ultimate sin. Don't be so quick to refuse, I smiled. Let me show you a few things. I turned on the monitor in the room. The first image was of Damien Stryker. His head was shaved, and he was wearing a standard-issue prison jumpsuit, sitting at an industrial sewing machine, clumsily working the pedal. His eyes were hollow, all his former fire gone. The second image was of Dr. Finch, also in a prison uniform. He was mopping a bathroom floor while other inmates ordered him around. His scholarly, mystical aura was completely gone. The third image was of Julian Croft, the former king of Port Sterling, implicated in so many crimes he was sentenced to life without parole. He was on a visitation phone, weeping uncontrollably at the family member on the other side of the glass. The three titans who thought they were above the law were now just common criminals. Their halos were gone, their privileges stripped away. Under the iron fist of the law, they were nothing special. Spectre watched the images, his body trembling slightly. He was a man who lived by the sword. He didn't fear death. But he feared this, a life without hope, a slow, grinding existence where every last shred of his dignity was stripped away. He began, his voice cracking. I'll add one more thing to the deal, I interrupted. Cooperate with us, and I will personally guarantee your safety in prison. Otherwise, I can't promise the Dragon's Den won't send someone to silence you. That was the final straw. Spectre's defenses crumbled. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Spectre's confession blew the lid off a global conspiracy. It turned out that the Dragon's Den, the Miracle Workers Network, and other similar groups were all just puppets. They were controlled by a single, shadowy transnational organization called the Crucible. They recruited gifted individuals from all over the world. Martial arts masters, genius hackers, genetically engineered soldiers, and infiltrated every level of society, all with the goal of establishing a new world order, one that stood above the laws of any nation. Damien Stryker, Alistair Finch, and Silas Vance were just pawns the Crucible had placed on the board in the United States. The case escalated instantly. The Department of Justice, in conjunction with Interpol, launched Operation Swordfall, a top-level joint task force. Its mission, to use Port Sterling as a starting point for a global offensive to dismantle the Crucible. And because of my performance, I was given a field promotion and appointed as the lead tactical commander for all Swordfall operations in North America. My office was moved from police headquarters to a secure, undisclosed military base. Staring at the massive world map on the wall, dotted with red X's marking Crucible strongholds, I felt an unprecedented level of pressure and excitement. This is the real big league. Enforcer system, it's time to really go to work. As I was reviewing case files, an unexpected visitor arrived at the base. Isabella Vance. She was no longer the glamorous socialite. She wore simple clothes. Her face was drawn and pale, and the pride and resentment in her eyes were gone, replaced by confusion and regret. Commander Thorne. She bowed deeply before me. I am sorry. After Stryker and the others were arrested and their crimes became public knowledge, her family's company was implicated and collapsed almost overnight. She saw firsthand how the people who had once fawned over her now treated her with scorn and contempt. She finally understood that the romance and privilege she had been so proud of were nothing but a foolish, pathetic joke in the real world. "I came to give you something." She took a flash drive from her purse. "Damien left this with me a while ago. He said it was something about a Project Chimera for the Crucible. I didn't understand it, but I figured it might be useful to you." I took the drive, surprised. "Why help us?" Isabella gave a bitter smile. "I'm tired of living in a fantasy, and I want to atone for my own stupidity. I don't want him to keep making things worse." I nodded, saying nothing more. "Thank you. Your cooperation will be noted as a significant contribution to this investigation. I'll inform the relevant authorities to take that into account when dealing with your family situation." Isabella bowed again, then turned and left without another word. I plugged the drive into my secure terminal. Portable evidence analyzer activating. Bypassing Omega-level encryption. Lines of code flew across the screen. A few minutes later, a file titled Project Chimera opened. As I read the contents, my blood ran cold. The goal of the project was to create an army of superpowered soldiers through illegal human experimentation, all happening in a secret underground lab right here, beneath Port Sterling. And the final activation was scheduled to take place in just 48 hours. At that time, these uncontrollable chimeras would be unleashed on the city, creating mass chaos to demonstrate the Crucible's power to the world. Maniacs. They're all complete and utter maniacs. I slammed my fist on the desk. "Give me a secure line to the Director of National Intelligence." Now, the revelation of Project Chimera threw the entire Swordfall Command into a state of high alert. We had 48 hours to find and destroy that lab, or the consequences would be catastrophic. Apex Predator Tracker, activate. I used the Project Chimera file as the source. A massive, detailed schematic of Port Sterling's underground tunnels and sewer systems flooded my mind's eye. Countless pathways crisscrossed each other, but they all converged on a single point: a long-abandoned Cold War-era bomb shelter. Got you. I immediately mobilized the region's most elite Special Forces unit, the Reapers, along with top experts in demolitions and biohazard containment. As night fell, dozens of military trucks and armored vehicles silently surrounded the abandoned industrial park above the shelter. I donned a suit of advanced-powered exoskeleton armor, holding a prototype railgun, and stood at the head of the formation. "All units, listen up." My voice, broadcast through my helmet's comms, was crystal clear to every soldier. "Our objective is to destroy the facility, rescue any hostages, and neutralize all Crucible operatives. Be advised, we may be facing enemies who defy conventional explanation. Lethal force is authorized." Hua. At my command, the demolitions team placed a shaped charge on the shelter's massive steel blast door. Boom! The explosion tore a gaping hole in the entrance. "Alpha team, breach. Bravo, cover. Charlie on me." I was the first one through the dark opening. We entered a long, metal corridor, its walls pulsing with an eerie red light. The air was thick with the sickening stench of formaldehyde and blood. Lining the corridor were massive glass tubes, each containing a grotesque human or animal subject, twisted and altered by experimentation. It was a hall of horrors. "Monsters," one of the younger soldiers muttered. Suddenly, alarms blared. Several heavy alloy doors at the end of the hall slid open, and a horde of figures in white lab coats charged out. But their bodies were horribly mutated. Some had arms that had become sharp blades of bone. Others could spit corrosive acid from their mouths. They shrieked and swarmed toward us. "Open fire." A storm of lead erupted, weaving a net of death. But the bullets only sparked against their hardened skin, failing to penetrate. One soldier wasn't fast enough. A stream of acid caught him, and half his body dissolved in an instant, his screams echoing horribly down the hall. "Armor-piercing rounds." I roared, simultaneously activating my aura of authority. An invisible wave of pressure washed over the battlefield. The rampaging chimeras visibly faltered, a flicker of fear entering their bestial eyes. Seizing the opportunity, I raised my railgun and fired. Thwomp, thwomp, thwomp. Streaks of molten metal, moving faster than sound, slammed into their heads. The bulletproof monstrosities collapsed like puppets with their strings cut. The tide of the battle turned instantly. Clear the area. Keep moving. We fought our way through the facility, finally reaching the central control room. A man in a black trench coat and a gold mask stood before a giant monitor, watching us with cold indifference. He was the director of Project Chimera, one of the Crucible's 12 apostles, the Doctor, Caleb Thorne. I'm impressed you made it this far. The Doctor's voice was distorted and metallic. But you're too late. He slammed his hand down on a large red button. Welcome to my masterpiece. The entire base began to shake violently. A massive, transparent dome rose from the floor, sealing us inside and separating us from the Doctor. Outside the dome, hundreds of incubation pods opened simultaneously. One by one, far more powerful final form, chimeras awoke, their glowing red eyes fixing on us. A true boss battle was about to begin. Enjoy the grand finale I prepared just for you, Commander. The Doctor's maniacal laughter echoed through the vast chamber. Outside the dome, the ultimate chimeras swarmed, slamming their bodies against the transparent barrier. Commander, we're surrounded. We're almost out of ammo. Looks of despair began to appear on my soldiers' faces. I stared at the red button, my mind racing. I have to take out the Doctor and shut this down before that barrier breaks. I took a deep breath, channeling every last bit of my accumulated justice points into my right arm. System, give me everything you've got. Ping, consuming all justice points. Activating ultimate skill for a single use. Gavel strike, breaches all known forms of energy and physical defense. The powered armor on my right arm erupted in a blinding golden light. A world-shattering amount of energy coalesced in my fist. Cover me, I roared, launching myself like a cannonball toward the dome. Bang, bang, bang. My men spent their last rounds, clearing a path for me. It's useless, the Doctor screamed with glee from inside his sanctuary. That dome is made of a hyperalloy. Not even a missile could scratch it. I ignored him. I focused every ounce of my strength, every bit of my will, into a single devastating punch. Boom! There was no deafening explosion, only a deep, resonant impact that seemed to suck all the sound out of the air. For a single, silent moment, time stood still. Then, before the Doctor's disbelieving eyes, a network of fine cracks appeared on the indestructible dome, radiating out from my fist. Crack! Crackle! The cracks spread like a spider web across the entire surface. No, that's impossible. Amidst the Doctor's final, terrified shriek, the hyperalloy dome shattered into a million pieces. I walked through the cascading shards, stepping toward the man who was now paralyzed with fear. Game over, Doctor. I grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off his feet. Now, tell me how to turn them off. Terrified beyond reason, the Doctor shakily pointed to another blue button. I threw him to the ground and slammed my hand on it. The alarms instantly ceased. The rampaging chimeras all went limp, collapsing to the floor. The crisis was averted. Operation Swordfall was a decisive victory. The Crucible's strongholds across the globe were systematically dismantled. Its leadership was captured, and a vast criminal empire that sought to rewrite the world's rules was crushed under the boot of global justice. For my role, I was awarded the nation's highest commendation. At the ceremony, the camera flashes were blinding. I looked out at the sea of admiring faces, but all I felt was a calm sense of purpose. Afterward, I hung up my military dress uniform and went back to Port Sterling, back to my job as SWAT Commander. Because I knew that this world would never run out of self-proclaimed kings and gods who thought the rules didn't apply to them. My list in the enforcer system was still long. There was the peerless healer who just came down from his mountain retreat, planning to control the city's elite with his miraculous skills, despite not even having a medical license. And this super soldier bodyguard who just returned to civilian life, saw a female CEO and declared, "You are mine," with a complete disregard for her rights or consent. My story was just beginning. In this world, I don't care who you are. If you break the law, if you put yourself above others, then I'm sorry. You get the cuffs, a court date, and a long stay in a government-funded facility. No exceptions, because here, the law is the only apex predator. End.